Our next speaker is Marilyn Henderson from the Medical Institute. She is Medical Institute for Sexual Health. She's responsible for overseeing the production and updating of Medical Institute's medically accurate products. So if you want a scientist or an expert, she's the lady. And so we met back in February of last year, and I'm glad she was able to attend and make it with us because she has some great information to share you. And all the evidence and scientific base that's always put out there is sexual education material has to be evidence-based, but yet they abandon it for emotional, for sexual risk reduction. This lady will help dispel that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I have a lot of dry numbers for you today, unfortunately, but I think they're very important for us to get a picture of what's going on in society today. My name is Marilyn Henderson, and I started as a registered nurse in 1977. I'm still an active nurse, and I've been with Medical Institute now for 5 years. The statistics that I'm giving to you today are directly from the Center for Disease Control and also from the Texas Health Department. These are non-debatable, they're numbers. Okay, so first I want to give you just a snapshot, a quick snapshot of the teen pregnancy situation in Texas. The last numbers that we have are from 2016. In 2016, there were 29,765 births to teen mothers in Texas. There's only 3 states that have higher birth rates than the state of Texas. But when you break this down by race and ethnicity, you see that 19,604 births were to Hispanic mothers. That's about 2/3 of the total. Non-Hispanic white births was the next largest number, and that was 6,007. And non-Hispanic black births were to teen mothers were 3,825. So Texas does continue to have a high number of teen pregnancies, and they obviously need to be addressed from a cultural perspective. Now, teen pregnancy is only one of the many consequences of teen sexual activity, and yet it seems to be the consequence that our society chooses to focus on the most. However, sexually transmitted infections and the resulting diseases are experiencing what the CDC says are steep and sustained increases. Moreover, the only birth control method that holds any protective factor against STDs is the condom, and it has significant limitations, which I will address later. There, in the United States, the whole United States, there are about 20 million new STDs diagnosed each year. Half of those, 10 million, are in the young people ages 15 to 24 years old. These are our high school and our college age students. Now, there are only 3 STIs that are the bacterial STIs that you are required to report. And those have already been mentioned here by Paula: chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis. And she gave you the numbers on those. I do want to say that although all 3 of these STIs are very treatable with antibiotics, the number continues to grow year after year. In fact, gonorrhea has developed a resistance to almost every antibiotic that we have treated it with. So without just the bare numbers, we can say that Texas ranks number 18 in the highest rates for both chlamydia and syphilis, and 22nd for gonorrhea. You do have a graph in your briefing book that illustrates these numbers from the CDC. With no treatment or even delayed treatment, chlamydia and gonorrhea can cause pelvic inflammatory disease, which can result in chronic pelvic pain and often in infertility. Syphilis, as you know, has serious side effects, including neural impairment. And all of these sexually transmitted infections can be transmitted to the unborn baby during a pregnancy or delivery. Now, although these STIs can be cured with adequate antibiotic treatments, their very presence increases the risk of a person either getting or giving HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. So as we're talking now about HIV, let's look at the Texas snapshot. Despite all the antiretroviral medications, people are still dying from AIDS. In 2015, we lost 634 Texans to AIDS. In 2017, we had 4,391 new diagnoses of HIV infection. And since the year 2008, each year at least 4,000 new cases have been found. Currently, there are about 90,700 Texans living with an HIV diagnosis. However, the CDC estimates that only 1 in 5 persons with HIV have been diagnosed. I'm sorry, 1 in 5 have not yet been diagnosed. The age group that has the greatest number of diagnoses is ages 25 to 34, with 1,640 cases, followed by 980 cases of 15 to 24-year-olds. That's in our state of Texas. Now we're really grateful for the drugs that have been developed that help to suppress the HIV virus. However, those drugs are expensive and they cause side effects. They can cause damage to the kidney and the liver. And these young Texans contracting the HIV virus are facing many, many years of antiretroviral medications. Currently, there is no vaccine that prevents HIV, and we have no known cure. The most dangerous route of transmission of HIV is through anal sex, with the receptive partner being at a much higher risk than the penetrating partner. It is noteworthy that in heterosexual couples, the woman is always the receptive partner, and thus she is at a much higher risk than her male partner for getting HIV. Texas currently has over 19,000 women living with HIV. Unfortunately, HIV is not the only life-threatening sexually transmitted disease. Human papillomavirus, often known as HPV, has strains that are known to cause cancer. HPV is the most common virally transmitted infection, and it can be transmitted by skin-to-skin contact. Now, most of the HPV strains do not cause cancer. However, nationwide, HPV, this is nationwide now, not just Texas, HPV causes about 31,500 cases of cancer each year. These cancers include almost 12,000 cases of cervical cancer and over 16,000 cases of oral pharyngeal cancer. And HPV is now the leading cause of oral pharyngeal cancer over tobacco. Other cancers from HPV are vulvar, vaginal, anal, and penile cancers. Vaccines are available to prevent all of the most prevalent cancer-causing strains of the virus, and also most of the wart-causing viruses. And the CDC does recommend vaccinating both male and females at about age 12. However, the vaccine remains very controversial, and many parents do not choose to vaccinate their children. So unplanned pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections are clearly considered the most common consequences of sexual activity among teens. We at the Medical Institute know that there are other consequences that can follow a teen through a lifetime. I've not been asked to present today about the brain's response to teen and sexual activity, but I do want to state that teen depression and suicide have been certainly linked to teen sexual activity, along with teen dating violence and sexual and pornographic addictions. And I would like to recommend to you, some of you have known our book Hooked. It was just updated and has just been released January 1st. So you can always come to our website to order that book. Now the sexual risk reduction, the SSR, and the so-called comprehensive, I say so-called because it's really not at all comprehensive, sexuality education courses only partially address sexually transmitted infections and pregnancies, because the solutions that they give for avoiding these are simply contraception, including LARCs, which is the long-acting reversible contraceptions. What we're seeing, a big push for teens to use intrauterine devices, IUDs, and also hormonal implants. And then, of course, condoms. I recently read, this is very recently, I read an article in Teen Vogue magazine, which quoted the lead doctor of Planned Parenthood saying that condoms are 98% effective against pregnancy. The problem is people don't use them correctly. The actual studies show that if a couple uses condoms correctly and consistently each time they have sex, about 1 in 6 couples will experience a pregnancy within a year. Those are the same odds as Russian roulette. It is true that long-acting reversible contraceptives are very effective in preventing pregnancy. However, they are invasive, have side effects, and are not widely used by teens. Furthermore, they provide absolutely no protection against the sexually transmitted infections. The effectiveness of condoms against, we talked about the effectiveness of condoms with pregnancy, but the effectiveness that condoms have in preventing transmission of sexually transmitted infections varies with whatever virus or bacteria that you're dealing with. So you can't have this sweeping all saying that they are just highly effective in preventing STDs. We do have a handout, the facts about sexually transmitted infections, and in this brochure it does talk about the actual studies that have been done with real life people on the effectiveness of condoms with the different sexually transmitted infections. But it's really more about 60% effectiveness with the most common transmissible diseases. Another approach to birth control in the SSR and CSE education programs is the use of alternative sexual behaviors designed to give pleasure without the risk of pregnancy. Oral and anal sex are actually being promoted to our teens. Basically, all of the sexually transmitted infections that are spread by traditional vaginal intercourse are also spread through oral and anal sex. There are virtually no studies on how effective condoms are with oral sex because they're simply not used. We do, however, know that condoms are less effective in anal sex with the transmission of the HIV virus. With vaginal sex, condoms are 80 to 85% effective in preventing HIV, but only 70% with anal intercourse. Here is a statement from the CDC 2015 Transmitted Disease Treatment Guidelines. The most reliable way to avoid transmission of STDs is to abstain from oral, vaginal, and anal sex, or to be in a long-term, mutually monogamous relationship with a partner known to be uninfected. Don't our children deserve to know the truth? Yes. Don't they deserve to have the same clear message given to them by their parents, their health providers, their school nurse, and their counselors? My generation the baby boomers. We ushered in the sexual revolution of the 1960s with no idea of the long-term, devastating consequences that would result from our free love. It is time that we help to usher in a new sexual revolution for a new generation, one that speaks of the real freedom that comes with sex contained in the safe context of marriage.
Amen.
Thank you, Marilyn Henderson with the Medical Institute. What a great line to leave us with. And why do we have exit signs in this building? It's to direct traffic flow, make sure everybody's healthy and safe, right? Why not have the same instruction when it comes to sexuality? And the numbers that Marilyn just showed and shared exhibit why and explain and reveal that, what it is.